Hey, everybody. I'm here today to talk a little bit about the new process that we're putting in place around making a request to attend a presentation, give a presentation, or travel for the purpose either of providing information, for example, giving a presentation, or being an attendee at an event. As we get started, I actually want to start out with a little bit of a decision tree to help you think about whether or not you need to submit a form for the event that you are thinking of. In order to help us all out a little bit as we think about whether or not we need to submit the travel request form, we put together a decision tree. And you'll notice that in most cases, the answer is, yeah, you probably should go ahead and submit the form. And I'm going to walk through these actually before I walk through the form for the first time to just make sure that we're all entering this from the same space or the same thinking. The purpose of the presentation and travel request form is to increase the ability that we have to coordinate our work, to ensure that at all times we're doing what's the best for the students of Montana by making sure that across the agency we're really present for all the events that we need to be there for, and we're present at the right grain size or the right level of support. Right now, when we all ask just our supervisor to travel for an event or to attend a presentation, no one person actually has line of sight into the big picture of what all of the events are, what all of the individuals are might be asking. This process is going to help us to do that. And so when we think about whether we need to submit a request, that has been a lot of the questions that we've got as we've moved towards this process. First question you should ask yourself is, do I need to travel? If the answer to that question is yes, I'm going to need to travel. I'm either going to need a motor pool or I'm going to need a personal use vehicle form or whatever. I'm going to get on a plane if I'm leaving my town and there will be an in or out of state travel claim generated. The answer is yes, you should submit the travel request form. If you're going to be presenting to an audience, you're going to be sharing presentation materials with an audience, then yes, you should submit that presentation request form. It doesn't matter if you would be traveling or not. Now, everybody who said yes to that travel question, we already know that we're going to submit the form for that. But when it comes to this question of even if I'm not traveling, if I'm presenting, then I should submit a form. Even if I'm not traveling, if I'm going to be in a meeting where there's an audience of stakeholders present, I'm going to be there as an OPI employee attending as a participant, I'm going to need to submit something for that. If I was invited to represent the agency at a meeting or conference or at a school even, I should submit a request for that. You can see the idea being here that when we as employees are out in the field, we're collecting that information into one common place, a place where we all can see it and engage with it together, a place where we all can look at the sum total of our work. Now, that last question at the bottom, that is this a meeting that is a typical part of your duties as written in your job description? In those cases, you probably don't need to submit. We do recommend you still check with your manager. If your manager isn't sure, they can check with their senior manager and so on. The idea being that there are clearly things that we do that the answer is going to be no, you don't need to submit for that. Now, while I'm here thinking about this, if you have on your mind the question that has to do with something that is repetitive, I visit the school every month. Please work directly with your manager on those. We are creating a separate process for events of that type. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the presentation or travel request form itself. Now I'm going to go ahead and fill this out for us so that we can look together at what it really looks like to complete this form. So I'm going to go ahead and submit this form on behalf of Rachel. This is something that's important to note in the event that you need to get this done and you have an admin, it is possible to submit this form on behalf of someone else. At this time, it asks you to select your manager. We may reach a point where we're able to remove that in terms of the programming on the back end of the form, but for now, if you can select your own self and then select your manager. In this case, the type of event is going to be a conference. The role that Rachel would be both as a presenter and an attendee. The setting is in person. The entity in this case is a state agency, and the name is the Montana OPI Summer Institute. Now, some people might have chosen to put down the choices here. One of them is a Montana-based education organization. It probably would have been fine to select that as well. In this case, it is a conference being put on by a state agency, and so we have that state agency option. I could go pull the link to Summer Institute and put it here. I'm going to put that this is in Bozeman, Montana, and then I can enter the dates for the event, which are sometime in June. We'll go back and fix that later. And just in the interest of time, I'm going to just put dates this month in, but we would put the real dates in by putting those dates in June. Benefit to the Montana learners. This conference is important because, and then here I would say OPI benefits from the involvement of the literacy grant. So that kind of allows you, there are some cases where the benefit is clearly out to the learner. There are other cases where the benefit is clearly to the agency. You might put nothing in one and something in the other. You might have something to put in both. Either way is fine. Associated costs here, there's going to be actually for this, in this case, because this conference is happening in the town where this individual lives, there might be a per diem for meals because they'll need to be in the building of the conference throughout the day. I don't know that we'll need, we might need some mileage to get there, but we shouldn't need a hotel. So that has to do with the individual's proximity. You'll notice that some of these things are things that if you end up making an out-of-state travel claim, you would need to select that again and provide an estimate for it. Right now, you're just saying, what are the things I think we're going to need to pay for? In the event that you're going to be doing an out-of-state travel claim, you can then formalize those estimates later. And then we're going to go through the time commitment. Now, I'm not going to begin to guess at what Rachel's time commitment would be here, but we're going to think about the number of hours that it would be in advance. We're going to list the activities that preparing materials and working with presenters. We could, of course, change these later if we felt like this was the wrong amount. Time spent traveling, total of 2 hours, maybe back and forth. Actually, because it's going back and forth every day, maybe it's 4. Personal vehicle. And I'm going to pause the video for a second and finish filling this out because I want to be able to show you where the. Okay, so while the video was paused, I went through and finished filling this out, and I just put in some answers to this. I'm doing my best to at least be in the realm of appropriate so that Rachel can just edit this instead of deleting it later. But you'll notice a couple of things that I'm going to point out here. One, we definitely said that we were going to be both presenting and attending this conference. 2, you'll notice that I'm saying that this will result in comp time. I don't need to give a huge amount of details, but I do need to answer the question that we will have comp time and why. Now, when I hit next, I'm going to put in Rachel's name. And I'm going to put in my own email. There's 2 reasons for that, but most importantly that I don't need Rachel getting my dummy email right now, and she's in the middle of whatever she's doing. You would, of course, put in your own email. You then receive a copy of that, and I'll show you that copy in just a minute when it comes to my email address. It now says, and done. Now, let's say you had another event to submit. You could just hit refresh right there, and it would take you back to the beginning of that form, and you would be able to see that. Now, I'm just going to show you in the Montana Literacy Project section of WRIKE, there is some stuff that we want to look at. Sorry about that glitch in our audio. As we look at this Montana Literacy Project folder, we can see that there are a few different things that are being kept in here. I've chosen to use the Montana Literacy Project for a few reasons. One was so that we could generate the email to be sent to me that I needed, but also so that it was a smaller team that had kind of less busyness in here. When we come into this folder, that this is the Montana Literacy Project space, there's a folder now in there called Travel and Presentation Requests. When I select that folder, it says the literacy grant, and that's a little bit redundant. I'll show you why it says that in just a moment. When I go into the literacy grant, what I can do is I can select Rachel, and what we'll see is that there is now a request that's been submitted that has been tagged to me as Rachel's supervisor and to Rachel as the person traveling. When I click on this, I can look and I can actually see the full detail of all of the answers. I can see whether there have been any approvals. You can see the process of submitting it started an approval process. It's been sent to me for approval. I didn't do anything to cause that other than submitting with Rachel's name selected. You can also see that it created 2 sub items. One is a place for Rachel to store the presentation materials that she might be using for this presentation. And the other one is a place for Rachel to submit the information that she might need to give to her manager about her comp time request when it comes closer. By definition, Rachel has already noticed her supervisor that she's going to need comp time on the week of the event, but this is a place where she can provide further detail. It did those things automatically just based on what you selected on the form. Over time, I'm sure we'll add more functionality like that to this. What I think is also interesting is that if we go back and we look at this and we look at Rachel's folder here in the literacy grant, or actually here, this literacy grant folder. Sometimes in order to see more information, you need to click this little folder info button. When I click this folder info button, what you'll see is that this information is stored in 3 different places. I only submitted it once though, and you all saw when I hit submit, that was all I ever did. It automatically populated it into all 3 of these places. I'm going to show you what those 3 places are, how they work, and why they matter. So the first place that I put it was in the COO team. Our COO, our Chief Operating Officer, is Julie. Within the COO team, we have a few different individuals that could be doing their responses. They could be people directly supervised by Julie. There are a few teams that are just under Julie. They're not out in a department. Could also be that it was an innovation, school improvement, school support services, or teaching and learning department request. Right here in this space, Carrie, myself, and Julie can see all of the requests submitted across all of the programs that sit under Julie. We have access right here to all of that. And if I were to click into the teaching and learning department and then click into the literacy grant, and then click in and see Rachel, there we would see Rachel's request that we just submitted. It showed up there and I can access that through the COO space. Within the teaching and learning space, I also have presentation and travel requests. In this case, in the teaching and learning space here, all of these things that are present, each of those is a folder that the managers can all see. And so all of the managers within teaching and learning can get support and give support to each other using this version of the space. This is important because the way in which we've been organized together, the teams that work most frequently together often are seated together under the same senior manager. In this case, as the professional learning team is collaborating with the career technical and adult education team on different events that they might both be attending, the managers of those 2 teams have transparency into each other's requests. You'll note, though, that the managers on my team don't have any line of sight into what's happening on Carrie's team, because that is something that Carrie and I would need to work together to collaborate across those 2 teams. The last place is in that Montana Literacy Project Literacy Grant folder. Within this space, this is then where Michaela, Sarah, and Rachel can all see each other's materials. That means that if Sarah and Michaela are both making the same request, they can actually build off of each other's information. All of that comes together into an approval process. And so the last thing that I'll show you is what it looks like when I go into approve. So many of us have a dashboard that was made available to us by IT, and we're working with IT to maybe personalize these dashboards a little bit for those of us that are doing approvals. You'll notice that my dashboard's pretty messy. Thankfully, though, I don't have a ton of things coming into my approval line at this time. And so you can see that because I submitted that as Rachel, it is already programmed to be sent to me for approval. When I click into this, I can read everything that Rachel sent. I can access it straight off of that dashboard as something that's there for me to approve. I don't need to go down through all the folders to find it. It's just right there for me. I then am able to, after I review all of this, I can open up the hidden section and I can hit approve. When I hit approve, I have the ability to add a comment, and I can say, thank you so much. Making a literacy strand for this year. Right, or whatever I wanted to say. I can also leave a note that the person above me can see. I approve this as the supervisor, and I ask that everybody else approve it as well. We have that opportunity to then have that comment. When I hit send comment, everybody can see that, and we can see here that the decision for approval was that I marked it approved, and I added a comment. Now I can start a new approval by saying, great, now that that happened, now I need to let Julie approve it, because Julie actually also needs to say yes to this. So I've set it up that I have to approve it first before it gets sent to Julie. But once I've approved it, I'm going to say, I'm going to send this to Julie. Now we've got a lot of time before this needs to be done. Rachel doesn't need to know tomorrow. It's only January, and this is for an event in June. So I'm going to give it a whole week of time for Julie. I'm going to hit start. That means that when this appears up on Julie's tasks pending my approval board, it will show it below anything that had a nearer approval date. We can talk over time about what the right amount of time is for those approvals. But for now, everybody at least can see how a form gets submitted, what happens to a form once it is submitted, how we all have access to just the right forms for us, and how we're able to see that transparent process that something is going through as those approvals happen.